The rain was relentless, the kind that swallows headlights and makes every mile feel endless. Through the blur on the windshield, a figure appeared on the side of the road. A person, soaked, shivering, holding out a thumb. The driver hesitated. The road was empty. No other cars, just darkness, and this figure standing there. Against every instinct, they pulled over. The stranger climbed into the back seat, clothes dripping wet, head bowed, a whisper of thank you. Then softly an address. The drive was long and silent. No conversation. No sound but the squeak of wipers and the pounding rain. But in the rearview mirror, the driver could swear the stranger's lips were moving, whispering, muttering something too faint to hear. Finally, headlights lit up the destination, a house at the end of a narrow driveway. The driver turned to announce they had arrived. But the back seat was empty. The car door had never opened. No footprints on the wet pavement, just silence. Shaken, the driver approached the house and knocked. An older woman answered, sleepy-eyed, confused. When told about the stranger, her face drained of all color. She whispered, "That's impossible. My daughter died on that highway 10 years ago tonight." The driver staggered back to the car. On the seat, still soaked with rainwater, lay a folded scrap of paper. In shaky handwriting, "Thank you for the ride." Story 2. In the heart of the forest, far from any town, two people pitched a tent. They built a small fire, ate, and finally zipped themselves inside for the night. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No wind, no animals, just stillness. Hours later, one of them stirred awake. At first, they thought it was a dream, a low sound, a faint humming, a tune without words. Then they realized it wasn't a dream. The humming grew louder, and it was moving, slowly circling the tent. The thin nylon walls glowed faintly from the moonlight. A shadow drifted across. Someone was out there, walking around. They nudged the other awake, and together they listened. The humming changed. The voice began to form words. "I see you. I see you." The zipper at the tent's entrance began to move, slowly, tooth by tooth. A hand, pale, thin fingers pulling it down. They didn't wait. Bursting from the other side, they ran, barefoot, clutching only a flashlight. Branches whipped at their skin. The humming followed, faint but constant. They didn't stop until daylight. When rangers returned with them later, the tent was still standing. Food untouched, sleeping bags neatly arranged, but inside, written on the tent wall in black charcoal, were the words, "I told you I see you." And below it, a smiley face. Story 3. It was late. Streets were empty. Only the sound of footsteps echoing on cracked pavement. Then headlights appeared. A white van creeping slowly behind. The footsteps quickened. So did the van. Crossing the street didn't help. The van crossed too. The window rolled down, and two figures inside stared from behind ski masks. One of them spoke, flat, emotionless. "Get in the van." The person ran, heart pounding, lungs burning, sneakers slapping the pavement. The van screeched forward. Tires splashed through puddles. They ducked into an alley, pressed themselves behind a dumpster, holding their breath. The van slowed, idled, then rolled on. Silence. For a long time they stayed there, frozen, listening, until finally they crept out and made their way home. The door was locked, lights off. Safe. They exhaled, relief washing over. But then something caught the corner of their eye. A piece of paper taped to the front door. A photograph, blurry, grainy, taken just hours earlier. It showed them, running through the street, and in the corner of the photo, barely visible, the reflection of the white van's side mirror. Story 4. It was a cold night, too cold for anyone to be outside. The wind howled, rattling the glass of the old house. Someone was lying in bed, drifting between sleep and waking, when it started. Knock, knock, knock. 3 soft taps against the window. They sat up, heart pounding. The curtains swayed gently, and for a moment, they thought it was just the wind. But then, knock, 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 this time louder. Gathering courage, they pulled back the curtain. Nothing. Just the darkness of the yard. Relief washed over until they noticed something. Breath on the glass, fresh, as though someone had been standing there, face pressed to the window. They locked every door, every window, convinced it was over. But at 3 a.m., it came again. This time not on the window, on the front door. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, rhythmic, patient. They peered through the peephole. No one there, just the empty porch. Terrified, they stayed awake until dawn. When the sun rose, they dared to open the door, and that's when they saw it. On the porch, scratched deep into the wood, were 3 words. Let me in. Story 5. Everyone knows the feeling. Catching your reflection at night, when the room is dark and you're barely lit by the glow of a lamp. But sometimes the reflection doesn't move the way it should. It started small. Brushing teeth one night, they noticed something strange. Their reflection was just a second too slow. Just barely. Delayed. They laughed it off, a trick of the eyes. But then it got worse. The reflection began smiling when they weren't. It tilted its head when they didn't move. Every night the glass felt heavier, like something was pressing against the other side, straining to come through. One night, unable to resist, they leaned closer. Their reflection leaned closer too, but its lips were moving, whispering words that couldn't be heard. Then for the first time, the reflection didn't copy them. When they stepped back, the reflection stayed still, watching, grinning. That was the last night they looked into the mirror, because when morning came, the bed was empty. No sign of struggle, only the mirror remained, and inside it, a figure, standing there, smiling, waiting. Story 6. It was past midnight at the small convenience store. Fluorescent lights buzzed. The aisles were empty. The clerk was ready to close when the bell above the door jingled. Someone stepped in, a tall figure, face hidden by a hood. They moved slowly through the aisles, not speaking, just circling. The clerk's nerves grew tighter with every second. Finally, the figure placed something on the counter, a single disposable camera, old, scratched. The clerk rang it up, tried to make small talk. No response, just a hand sliding across the money. The customer left without a word. But here's where it gets strange. Hours later, as the clerk was locking up, curiosity won. They picked up the old camera, turning it over. But when they did, they realized something chilling. It wasn't empty. Inside were fresh photos, the kind that only film could hold. Hands shaking, they developed one, then another, then another. Each photo showed the inside of the store, every aisle, every shelf, and in the very last picture, the clerk, standing at the counter. The camera had captured them only minutes before the hooded figure ever walked in, which means the pictures had been taken before they even arrived.